Okay, we'll call the meeting in order. Regular meeting of the Newman City Council, April 8, 2003. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we bow our head in prayer. The prayer that I give you before you this evening is a silent prayer. I'll ask that we, in our own way, in a moment of silence, think about those that are protecting us abroad. Amen.
Amen. Roll call, please. Present. 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 Item 5, declaration of conflicts of interest. Item 6, ceremonial matters. None this evening.
No, none.
Number 7, communication from staff. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I just wanted to report to you a few of the ongoings of staff as we speak. Staff is making contact with the property owners from the old burned out building there to see what their long range plans are for the property in terms of, are they going to redevelop it? If not, are they going to offer it up for sale so we can look at a long-term plan as part of our rehabilitation and purchasing plan that we talked about during our goal setting workshop that we had recently. Staff has also made contact with a few property owners along Highway 33 about abatement and cleanup of their properties. And lastly, as you can see across the street, Patches has proceeded forward with the restucco of their facade. We met with the property owner yesterday, and that seems to be going along well. So at this point in time, we don't see anything in the alley. If they don't proceed with that, then we'll probably make contact with them to see if we can get that wraparound feel and get the facade improvements to come through the alley, because you can kind of still see that part of the building from the Main Street area there.
Did they approach us with our facade program or no?
They have not. That was one of the things the staff went over and talked to them about and told them that it was out there. In talking with the city manager, we believe that that may be an opportunity if they don't wrap that around through the alley side. That may be an opportunity for the facade improvement program to maybe pay for some of that improvements on there.
So it doesn't look like they were planning on doing that
Yeah, at this
west side of the alley.
yeah, I don't see them planning on doing it. By the way, we looked at the way they taped off the windows in the front as opposed to back here. It looks like it just kind of generally puts them up so no splash gets on it from their work site. So.
Michael, can you mention just quickly, there are some other things they're doing, what they've got their permits in for their signs, the way they're changing those also?
Yes, there's also, they will be removing the 2 pole lollipop signs on the corners and putting one across the street here in the used car lot about halfway into the lot there. That sign has gone through architectural review committee and was approved, as well as it's already, we've signed off the building permit, so that'll be coming up. And cleaning up the clutter on that corner, as you see the 2 lollipop signs, those will be coming out, and a new one, a brand new sign will be brought up into the property there. As well, they'll be putting up some new wall-mounted signs on their facade as well as after they complete
On
the
the main
facade
building?
treatment. That's correct. With that, that's all
Sounds
that
good.
I had.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. No other communications? Item 8, items from the public, non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Is there any non-agenda items this evening? We'll move on to items from the public, agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the Council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the Mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the Council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the Mayor grants a longer period of time. At that time, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Item 9, public hearings. Have none this evening. Item 10, consent calendar. Item Mayor, approval of warrants. Item B, approval of minutes of the March 25th, 2003 regular meeting. Item C, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2003-2, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newman authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of Newman and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System. Item D, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2003/3, an ordinance amending Title 11, Chapter 5 of the new municipal code, water service regulations. Item E, informational item, implementation of 10% penalty on delinquent utility bills. Item 5, adopt resolution number 2003, next to number, authorizing a general fund administrative surcharge for non-general fund costs. And item G, authorize budget amount for depreciation transfer for 2003-2004 fiscal year. Have some direction on the consent calendar.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, it's a rather long consent calendar, and having the opportunity to review all the items, I'd like to pull item E and G. Otherwise, I move that the consent calendar be approved as said.
You're pulling items E and G.
E as in Edward and G as in George. That's correct.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the A, B, C, D, and F?
I'll second his, Councilmember Parker's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
If my colleagues will just grab their agendized item for the ones that I pulled. The one in particular, E, I like what I see there. It's talking about the utility bill, and maybe staff might want to just interject, because that's what's going to affect the public. I know we're going to send out notices, but I think it's appropriate that we do it in our meeting as well.
Margaret, do you want to comment on that?
You brought too many papers, Margaret.
I know. I read everything that I can't find anything. All right. Good evening. We're in the process of reviewing all our fees and making sure that particularly the service users pay for the service that they are using. And we've noticed that we do mail out about anywhere upwards of 200 delinquent bills, and there is no penalty assessed for the people that are getting this particular service, delaying in their water payments. We discovered that in the code there is provision allowing us to charge 10%. I polled about 11 cities in our immediate area, all of which impose some form of utility penalty if there is delinquency. 9 out of those 11 charge 10% to have a flat rate, monthly rate for recouping the costs. And there are quite a bit of costs for all the utilities we do. The most time consuming is mailing out these late notices. They take special care, individual looking at them. The forms really shouldn't be out in an open envelope, so we have to get more expensive mailers that cost over 40 cents a piece. It has to be in an envelope. It can't be out in the open like our normal utility bills. That makes postage higher, as well as the actual forms being printed. So in order to recoup some of the costs, we wish to impose and implement the code as it states. This hasn't been imposed since I've been here. That's going on 9 years. So we just wish, as a way of covering costs, we'd like to implement this provision in our ordinance.
Margaret, you mentioned 200. Is that average per
Yeah,
month?
it goes
Every
up and
month,
down depending,
Give or
yeah.
take 200.
It's about 200.
Margaret, maybe you could just elaborate a little bit on when that 10% penalty will kick in.
Okay.
I know it's explained in the report here, but it might be good to go over that so the citizens know.
The bills are mailed out the last day of the month. They should be received on the first day of the month. On the bill it says it is payable by the 10th, but there is no penalty. It's due, but it's not considered delinquent. At the end of the month, we start processing the new bills. At that point in time, if the prior balance had not been paid, we put on a little sticker note saying that you have 10 days. We are required by law to notify anyone who is subject to disconnection, to give them a 10-day notice. Then if it's not paid within the 10 days, which is the 10th of the following month, we send a shut-off notice. And that's required. That says we have to give at least 24 hours before we shut a person's water off. At that point in time, the penalty will be assessed. So you will actually have approximately 40 days to pay your current bill before the penalty will be assessed.
Thank you. And the reason why I wanted to bring that to light is because I think it's important when people are going to be faced with being an assessment that they're not used to,
Right,
that they're quite aware of it, so they don't feel as though we've imposed something unfairly.
right.
But giving an extra 40 days, I've actually seen those posted orange notes on my
No.
bill. But I make certain that I continue not to forget to pay the bill.
Right.
But I think it's important that people know before they're going to be assessed the penalty, how much time they actually have.
Yeah.
And
And
I
you
wanted to have that brought to light.
Yeah, and you understand what they're seeing, the little red sticker on their bill, that's not the time, even the time when the.
Right, they have an
It's-
additional
right.
10 days.
Yeah, they have.
It's
a-
when
they'll
you get the
actually
red
face-
bill
Yes.
that says
Yeah.
your water will be shut off, that, at that point in time, on that bill, there will be a 10% penalty
And Margaret,
assessed.
at that time, whether or not they come in and pay it before their water is shut off, they are assessed the 10%.
That's right.
Is that correct?
It is
Okay.
covering the cost because it is done as a part of the program, and the cost has already been incurred, because if we printed it, the bill and stuff, we've already started spending the money for it. So it's punitive, but it's basically to recover some of the extra costs.
Oh, and it kind of is there to try to nudge people to pay their
Yeah,
bills a little
it's
more on time.
little behavior modification, but if they choose not to,
Okay.
they're paying for the luxury of not paying quickly or timely. 40 days isn't quick, but
Okay.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. I move. Well, I guess I can move on to item number G. Since you're still here, Margaret, let's go over that. Just the point that I wanted to bring up is the differential in the $181,718 dollars, the replacement amount out of the general fund. In your report here, you touched on the fact that in the short term, it would be unwise, and catching up is always very difficult in the event that we fall short or have to use our general fund in a negative sense, that these monies go away from this particular
Right.
account.
right, it's a reserve. All it is doing, if you spent X number of dollars on a piece of equipment, you will expect to put a fair depreciation value in a reserve account, which will allow us to replace that item a few years down the road. And it's saved us many times. It's been established for, 7 years now. And all the police vehicles have been purchased out of that. There's been other equipment. There's some funds, the fire department especially, has been building up. We haven't spent anything other than the chief's pickup. So now there's a portion that we could make a substantial purchase, which otherwise, in this day and age, we wouldn't have been able to if we hadn't put that aside. Because if it's sitting there in the normal cash reserve, all of a sudden it becomes fair game. This is pulled out of general fund. It's pulled out of all the funds, water, sewer.
Right, and I understood
And it's
that.
put in the separate fund.
If it's necessitated, particularly when we come to trying to balance our budget, then it may negate the fact that they put it away because we may need to use it otherwise.
That's right. Well, we do need to use this on capital purchases because it is a policy set up by council. You can
Right.
alter your policy.
Right.
What you could easily decide to do, which may not be prudent either, is decide not to make the transfer this year. I've done the computations of the amount of the transfers for each fund, but we're so up in the air with the budget schedule this year. I just wanted to compute it so I could put it in and know what it should be. It might be council's decision a little further down the road that we just can't balance, particularly the general fund, by making that hefty transfer.
No, I don't have a problem with these funds being moved currently.
Uh-huh.
It's just, yes, down the road, it's going to be
It's
looked at
down,
a lot more
this is a
friendly.
strictly internal fund established, that council established a number of years ago.
Right, I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sounds good. Keep track of every penny.
Oh, you bet.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar items E and G.
Have a second?
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. 11, regular business. Item A, consider reappointment of Architectural Review Committee members.
Just quickly, Mayor and Council, we did advertise in the paper for this, for anyone who was interested. We did not get anyone new. The current members have reapplied. Jim Silvera is here in the audience tonight. Ed Ford, apologized that he was not able to attend tonight. He had a previous commitment, but did stress that he is still interested. And Sheldon, I don't know if we heard from Sheldon that we didn't hear from him. But it's my understanding that he did turn his application and is still interested in serving on the committee.
Just for everybody's information, Jim Silvera, who is here tonight, is a resident at large. Sheldon Crowe is the Newman Historical Society representative, and Ed Ford is the Planning Commissioner representative. Got some direction?
I so move that we consider reappointment of Architectural Review Committee members as listed below.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item B, review of the 2003-2004 budget schedule. Hello again, Margaret.
Hello. This is an item that typically is handled in-house by staff. This time of year or about, schedule is passed out to department heads to let them know the timelines. Worksheets are passed out based on the current expenditures for this year. We start going for the current year, so most of our projections are based on what we're currently spending. It's the best way simple way of seeing where we're going forward, base it on prior costs. We also review the revenue, what's coming in, especially on services, to make sure costs are being covered, and try to review what the state situation is so we can anticipate how much money is coming in. Balancing the budget depends entirely on the expended revenue versus the expected revenue and the expected expenditures. This year, the schedule is basically the same. I don't think we're going to be able to do as much work during the preliminary portion as we used to, because the major portion of our revenue that is handled by the state is really up in the air. Right now, I think the best thing that we can do is make sure that our projections of what we have to have in order to operate as an organization is put in place, and to refine the figures as much as possible, and spend more time in making sure all possible revenue sources are explored, to go through our cost recovery programs and make sure that we're charging fairly, and just do basic bookkeeping and housekeeping at this point. We have to have the preliminary budget adopted by June 30th. That's state law. After that point, and I don't think we'll have any idea what the state will do prior to that point, but after that point, before the adoption of the final budget, then we should have a much better picture of what we can and what we can't do. And the budget is also can be adjusted at any point in time for any additional cuts or additional revenue that might come in. So this is just to give the council the heads up that we are beginning to work on it. It is something we need to consider carefully, but it's just more exploratory and reviewing all our options and making sure things are correct, and evaluate current year's expenditures is what we're doing right now.
We're just waiting patiently to
Yes.
see what the state's going to do.
I wouldn't say patiently, but we're waiting.
Oh, well.
So you think this is a realistic time frame, Margaret?
Yeah, this can be done. It doesn't mean it's going to be, I don't want to say it'll be accurate as far as the information that we have. This can be done. We're ready to a point. I've already made speculations as to what next year's expenditures are going to be based on the contracts that are in place, based on energy uses for the utilities, our phone costs. Things aren't going to change that much. Mm-hmm. It's just the big project, the big ticket items, we just don't know. So it can be done. It doesn't mean it's going to be accurate, or let me use a word, it may not be complete.
Right, that's a better
It'll be put, yeah, yeah. It's no better than the information we have before us.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I know you've been energized and thrusting yourself a lot more down at City Hall. What I'd like to suggest to my colleagues, with Bob as well, and Charles here, is with this time schedule, I usually avail myself for Mondays, and I know that you're here in town. I think it would be prudent for us to involve ourselves somewhat in the process. Something that was discussed with staff previously was in a workshop form, but I know that there's difficulty that arises, particularly with Councilmember Marquez and Councilmember Martina doing the work week, 5-day work week. That my suggestion is you and myself, if there's no objection to our colleagues, kind of interface with this process just a little, so that we just don't get the comprehensive package and not have to pull it apart with any particular questions. We're kind of part of the process as we go along.
Sure, sure.
And I just wanted to allude to that in council session
Mhm.
with my colleagues. Charles, what do you think about that?
That's fine.
I mean, because I'm not going to avail myself every Monday, but in the process of this, looking at it, there's at least a couple of Mondays that we can interface with that.
I mean, I think, we've all, we're all pretty like-minded as far as our opinions on a lot of these issues. And, if we, certainly I trust both of your judgment as far as your input. I don't have a problem with that.
And we trust Margaret immensely.
Mm-hmm.
I think your work is really going to begin after the preliminary budget's adopted, because this will just be a simple task of way things were going and what we're doing. It won't be until we know what's coming in when we have to decide we're going to have to cut here, or we're going to have to choose what service we want, what capital expense, what repair is going to have to be postponed. Then the work will really begin.
And I think maybe
this is
perhaps
just balancing
at the latter half of the schedule
Uh-huh.
is to take just a preliminary look at what we may be
or even
going
in
into.
June or July, after, because this will just be what's necessary to keep the city running. When we get information, then we'll be able to actually then it's going to take choices and decisions on your part.
We'll know where we're at, hopefully.
Yes, yeah,
by
and right now we have
mid-year.
no idea.
Exactly.
Well, I will say to that, though, that I won't wait until, I don't think we should wait until we're actually forwarded with a preliminary budget, even though I know we can always make changes to it. It is our guide. So part of that guiding, I feel, will come from this council, because ultimately we make the final decision.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
that would be, we can work out a schedule with
Right.
staff where we might intervene.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. I think what Margaret's saying is too, is she doesn't even know what's going to
Yeah,
happen.
'cause
yet.
we don't
She's
know
kinda
what's going on with the
waiting
money.
to see, and
The only
sure.
thing we do know is that this budget needs to be adopted by June 30th.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the only thing we do know.
So July wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Our
I would just like to make a comment.
I'm not going to speak for the state.
I'd like to caution all the council members and the mayor that whatever we do as a council and as a unit.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
And there should be nothing that influences any of the things that they're doing as part of their job. If they, when they bring it back to us, then of course we have an opportunity at that time
Right.
to make a decision.
Absolutely, and I concur with that wholeheartedly. And one of the thoughts that I had was, as we get it and gain that information, it's always an information sharing pool. We have several council meetings that are in line with this schedule as well. And I'm just looking at something where we get a thick package like we normally do, and sometimes for us to digest that, it takes a little bit of time. I'd like to have an opportunity to digest it as we go along and share it with my colleagues so that we don't have to spend that time in a council meeting.
Sure. I have complete confidence in Margaret and the staff that, if something does come down the pike, cuts or whatever, that she'll keep us informed. Cleve the same way, I'm sure. If the bad phone call comes from the governor, we'll be the second people to hear it.
And also, typically, we don't adopt the preliminary budget till the last meeting in June, just because things are changing. I would like it balanced and legible, so to speak, in May sometime. So the May 6th date was just that's the beginning of this week, let's shoot for that. But then we refine it after that. And then, as long as we do it by the end of June.
Right. And I think, just for future reference, just to go on something Tim was saying, is, certainly I'm not the most available person because I'm mobilized right now, and Bob, isn't, the most available person all the time. If there is, and I'm not necessarily saying with this, but if there is, because I know we do have subcommittees for other issues, be it schools or be it whatever other issue. But at some time, if it need be, then certainly, maybe we could look at some committee or something like that in the future. I mean, if need be, then I think that would be useful.
I'm sure if an emergency would come up, we could, all get together for a meeting or whatever, if need be.
And I think just some of my comments are just anticipating what we've been hearing, because what's sticking in my mind are the VLF funds, those still haven't been unstuck from the state yet.
Mhm.
It's been kind of like in limbo for months now. And that's a $300,000 of our
Four.
funds. 400 now?
Total, yeah, we've received over 400,000 this year.
That's a whole lot of money for
Yes,
us.
Mhm.
that's a
And
substantial.
that's the trigger. When I say this, that's what I have in mind. I have $400,000 in mind, which will affect us tremendously as far as our budget is concerned.
Yeah.
But thank you, Margaret.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you very much.
Got some direction on item B?
Is this an actual action item?
We don't really need approval of that
Okay.
unless the council desires to.
Information.
So.
Okay. We agree with Margaret, and we have confidence in Margaret. Let her do her job. Okay, item C, approve request from Westside Valley High School for use of Pioneer Park for a Healthy Start celebration fundraiser.
Just quickly, I will comment, you have the information in your packet. There's a couple of letters, pages from Mary Pickford of Westside Valley High. This is designed to be a celebration of the Healthy Start program, but also they're using it as a fundraiser for Westside Valley High. They requested use of Pioneer Park on May 9th from 4 to 7 p.m. That's a Friday evening. We reviewed it. They are going to have some live music, but during those hours we don't expect it'll be a problem with noises, and it's a family-oriented event, so we don't really anticipate any problems. Nothing as far as alcohol or anything like that will be served, so that won't be a problem. The only request we made is that they would have to provide insurance for the event for the city, and I think that's about all we'll need. It's my understanding that the school resource officer, Officer Lemus, has volunteered to change his schedule on that day so that he can work until 7 in the evening to be there if security is needed. So we don't really anticipate much in the way of costs. They are requesting use of electrical power, but again, that won't be a huge cost that we're too worried about. So. With that, we just want to get, because they're requesting use of the entire Pioneer Park pretty much, we want to get council's approval for that.
So there's normally a fee associated with that. We've waived that. Is that
Well, we are proposing to waive the fee. We actually don't rent out the whole park.
Just
we
the
rent
one little
out.
section?
We rent out the picnic area,
Barbecue area.
Yeah, the barbecue area. And we don't even rent out the gazebo. Somebody asked about that not too long ago. We don't even rent out those areas. It's just kind of on a first come, or if it's used for some sort of major event. So, and we have kind of an agreement with the school that,
Yeah.
And this is somewhat a school event. So, we felt that it'd probably be appropriate to waive the fee.
Plus the fact it's on a Friday, it's not like there's going to be it's not like it's going to be high use at the park on a Friday between 4 and 7.
Most people have functions on Saturday or Sunday during the day.
It looks like a very good project, because when I read the report, to get the students together with the parents and what they're celebrating, and just to use a DJ, yeah, I don't think that'll incur a lot of electrical use.
Nah, it's not. Very minimal. It's getting light longer too, so probably won't even need the lights.
I was saying that kind
Exactly.
of funnily. I move that we approve the request from the Westside Valley High School for the use of the park for the Healthy Start celebration and fundraiser.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item D, approve strategic plan and goals for 2003-2004 as prepared at workshop on March 29th, 2003.
The purpose of this is simply, I've got these up on the screen. I'll run through them quickly. There is, I think maybe 1 or 2 that I made some minor changes to. I want to get your approval on, or we can change them back. Some of them, as you know, we hadn't finalized the wording. We had to put some of the wording too. So I want to run through these quickly so you can look at them. No real change in this except for the goal. We changed to public safety services, the maintain and enhance a high level of public safety services to recognize both police and fire. The others did not change in this area. Under increased economic development, I'm not going to read through all these unless you question me on some of them. I don't think you probably don't want me to, but I'll go through them and bring out the ones that were changed. In this area, I don't believe these are pretty much the way we had them. Unless you had any questions on those under economic development, I think those are the way we propose them. We've got the dates and et cetera in there. Under improved community involvement, I don't believe there were any issues on this one also. If I recall right, there may have been one of these. No, maybe not. Not on this one. Some of these we failed to put dates to, and so a couple of them I arbitrarily added the dates in because I wanted to have those dates in there. These have a couple that don't have dates on them, but I think I don't think the dates are necessary on the first one and on the third one, unless the council wants to see something there. Those are what we will look at. What I will try to do is the next time we go through this is try to be a little bit more specific on these so that we can put dates to them and it gives us more of something to look for that we have to have completed by a certain date and helps us with that. But any questions on any of these?
Seems like those two, Cleve, are just ongoing all the time.
They're ongoing,
anyway.
yeah, and they may not even be necessary to include in there anymore, but we'll leave them there for this year and then we'll review them next year and see what happens. So, under public safety services, under police department, I don't believe there were really any changes to these other than what we discussed. So I'll put these up. Under fire department, there are a couple, and I'll bring them up here first. I believe both of these two that I have the October 1st date on, we did not have a date on. They would just say prepare a report. And so I put those dates in there for that. Unless council has any objection to those dates, we will, I don't see any problem with us, having those done by October 1st. So, under improved cities infrastructure, these are pretty much the same as we discussed. There is one, and when I get to it, I'll show you. No, it's not under improved city infrastructure. These are all as we discussed them. Unless there's any questions on any of those, hopefully you had a chance to look at them because I ran through them pretty quickly there.
Looks good.
Under enhance the appearance of the city, this is the one where I made a slight change to, and it is under the second goal. Whoop, let me go back to that. Excuse me 1 minute. Under this goal, this second one, the wording actually was specific to the Newman flange, and that had been the year before too, to improve the appearance of Newman flange and to present to the city council for their consideration. I didn't do this to necessarily not focus on Newman flange because that is probably the worst of the ones that we want to focus on, but there are some other areas down there also that need looking at. And so I felt, it may be appropriate to change this language to Newman and to the industrial area rather than Newman flange specifically. Now, I'm not opposed to putting that back in there if the council would like to, but I felt that as we talked about it, there are some other areas that maybe need to be addressed. That's probably the most drastic, if you will, change of the ones that were in there. So I'll just ask what the council's idea on, are you comfortable with it stated that way, or if you want Newman flange back in there?
Personally, I think it's fine the way it is because we don't want to just target, one business. There's
Right.
other ones that need, sprucing up. We'll look at all of them.
Okay.
I'm in concurrence. I think it's an overall enhancement project, so we
Right.
know where that focus lies with that
Right.
particular.
Yeah.
And we all
area.
realize that if there's more to it than, like John and like Tim and John are saying, there's more to it than just one business out there.
Right.
And, it's just a matter of us setting our priorities as far as, where we're going to get the ball rolling at.
Yeah.
I mean, because the part of the thing is, that may be the most glaring example, but that may be the most difficult one to bring into compliance. And if, we specifically single it out, we're going to spend a lot of time trying to single one out while the others become more of an issue. So.
Right. Yeah,
Bob?
like I say, we did go down and drive, I went down there and drove through, and there are some others that need to be addressed, so.
Yeah, that looks fine. I think that covers it pretty well.
Okay.
I wanted to ask of staff, with this review process, as we did last year, are we considering doing this on a quarterly type basis? I know it's not something we do every council meeting, but it came up periodically when we went through the strategic planning
Right.
last year.
What I've stated in my report is that the goals will be monitored by staff and brought back to council for review and update on a monthly basis. So
So
the
you are
first,
gonna try to
the
bring
first
this to
meeting
us?
of each the first meeting of each month, first council meeting of each month, we will have this on as an agenda item to review, just like we had before. I had them up, and it shows the monitoring page, which has, are they on target? What is the target date, or is there a change, or comments, based on, problems we've had that we've had to change the date or whatever. So yeah, my proposal is, unless council wants it more often or less often, is that those will be on your agenda the first meeting of each month.
I think that's great. Once a month.
Only thing on that is that, I mean, believe me, I want to see a lot of this stuff get done timely as well. But the only concern I have with once a month is, well, I mean, we can see how it works.
Well,
I just think that's a little.
Yeah, because
The-
we actually
the
fell off.
report-
We all actually fell off,
Yeah.
when I recall last year.
Well,
It was-
we were doing it once a month up until,
No.
you recall last year, we were talking about it doing this for 6 months,
Mhm.
and then redoing the whole
Right.
goals. They were
Yeah.
6-month objectives.
Right.
This year, we've kind of done them as 1-year objectives. And so what we did is we went through the 6 months, and then, you're right, we kind of thought, well, do we schedule another, and what do we do? And it did drop off. But we were, up to that time, doing them on a monthly basis. And this doesn't have to be a lengthy process. All I'll do is I'll put the report in your packet each month. And what we'll do is we'll only look at the ones, all we really need to look at is the ones that are either coming up close to a deadline
Timely.
or have some change to them. So it won't be something that'll be a lengthy process going through and monitoring those each month.
Having it refined that way, then I think is more acceptable. I
Right.
see nodding of head.
Yeah, because you're right. Some months, we've got, you look at this one right here, January 1st, 2004, to come back and review that a month
Right,
from
to
now.
come
we don't
back
need to
next
do
month
that.
and say nothing was done on it.
Right,
That's just
right.
a-
And that's the thing,
waste of
we
time.
won't even probably look at that one next month unless something has happened that make us look at it. So,
Okay.
yeah, the review process should go fairly quickly unless there's something that has changed on a particular goal, so.
Sounds good. The ones that are coming up due, or, within 2 months, or if there is a big change on one, then we can
Right.
review it.
Mr. Mayor,
Sounds
if I may, I just want to make one final comment, because I think that this is so very beneficial to all of us, just kind of re-emphasizing going through that process and for staff to bring it back in with our guidance of doing this, that what we just finished speaking about right now on the time issues is really trying to stick to those as best we can through our prioritization process. And I believe part of that is for us as policy and direction setters to always stay abreast of it in an accountability sense. And I know the information is going to continue to be flowing from staff. With that, given that, whatever we can do to kind of help move the process along when we get bogged down like we have sometimes, even Ernie's used that term when we talked about PG&E and the poles out there for the tile drain. When we do get bogged down like that, if there's something that we can do, staff just let us know. How can we help the process move along? That way, I think we won't grow so overly concerned with the time delays, because we do get concerned about the time delays.
You're right. Is there any other questions or comments on item D?
Nope.
Some direction?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve the strategic plan and goals for the 2003-2004 as prepared at the workshop on March 29, 2003.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 12, items from the city manager.
Couple of items that I wanted to bring up. The question was raised by Councilmember Parker about the streetscape and the progress on that. The letter, as directed by council, was sent by our city attorney to Mr. Williams, giving him 30 days to basically take care of the items, or we would proceed to take care of those and go after the bond, the performance bond, in order to pay for those costs. That letter, I think it's been about 10 days that it's been out now. Is that right,
I
Tom?
think there's 12,
Okay.
somewhere around.
Somewhere in that area. So he has a little bit more time. The question was asked, some of the items such as the bike racks, he had already responded and said that he was going to do those. Last I had heard that it would be done by the end of March. Obviously that has come and gone. So I'm basically just waiting out the end of that 30-day period, and then we will proceed to look at having those done ourselves. Between some of it may be something that perhaps staff will do, otherwise we will contract it out if it is too big of an item and get those corrections made. The question was asked, have any of the things been done that were on that final punch list that we gave him? The answer is no. To my knowledge, none of those have been completed. Any questions on that before I...
So then we won't know anything probably till the first meeting in May? I mean, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
it probably, 2 weeks isn't gonna be 30 days.
I was going to look up the date of that letter, and Tom, you don't remember what the date was on that, do you?
14 days. If you said 12, it's not, yeah.
In my thought, I said there were 12 left,
12, oh, okay, 12 left.
or 14,
Yeah, it
somewhere
was
It could
in the
be.
ballpark.
like
We're
the
about half.
20th of March or something. Yeah, so we're about halfway. So, yeah, it will probably be the first meeting in May before we get can come back. But we will proceed immediately once we hit that 30-day period to looking at seeing what we need to do
Okay.
to start that process.
What about the big ticket item, the lettering? That would be something we would have to consider contracting out?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, depending on what we decide to do with it. See, there's still some question on there as far as exactly what needs to be done.
Well,
What
it
we
needs to be fixed.
Well, what we had proposed is that the lettering is solid now. It's just the top piece that is peeling off that is causing them to look bad. And if that peel was taken off and perhaps replaced with something that is secure, then the lettering should be in good shape. And that's the question that we have right now that we're trying to resolve and asking the contractor to resolve.
What was this other thing though that just came and went, you said? This something else that was supposed to be done?
That was on the bike racks, to refinish those. This was just verbal in a phone call with the project superintendent, not the head guy, Dave Williams, in which he said 30 days, and this was about the 1st of March. He told me it'll be done in 30 days, and they haven't done anything on it.
So they haven't started. Well, I mean, I have the feeling that we're going to end up having to use a hammer on this one because
We may.
if we can't get them to do a bike rack,
Yeah.
then you know how. In the
My
world are we
understanding
gonna
was
get them to come out
they
and
were
do
trying to
it?
contract that out. They weren't going to do it. They were trying to find a painter who would do it and do it right. But that's
So
where it's
what's, Tom, in the past, what has been, so let's say we get to this 30 days, which I'm sure we are going to. Then what's the next step? How long is that process as far as tapping into the performance bond?
We'll say, we'll get a bid, and then we'll say, we're gonna do the work, this is what it costs, this is what we're going to seek against the bond, and maybe at that time, we'll get a response.
Okay.
And then on another matter, one of the subs is also seeking payment
From whom?
from
The
Mr. Williams.
contractor?
And we will be filing a cross complaint saying, okay, here's the bond for that. You guys fight that out.
You recall, right as we got ready to return the retention to Mr. Williams, there was a stop payment put on for about $48,000 from one of the subs. We've been holding that. Mr. Williams has now provided a bond, which is legal under the law, to bond around that stop payment. So we have not returned the check. We're getting ready to, based on the fact we've got the bond. The action that will occur next. So, and then after he bonded around it, we, well, I won't go into that part. probably shouldn't. But anyway, what as Tom has mentioned, we will put that bond basically in the court's hands, and then they will decide it between the two. What happens with that? So
I bring that up too because it'd be a similar maybe situation at that point
yeah.
with us.
Okay. that, any other
That's
questions
it.
on that?
Thank you.
Just quickly to mention, I met today with Roberto Salinas and the architect that we will be using for the senior center project. He gave us a preliminary design which we reviewed and gave him some recommendations to go back on. Our plan is currently, and I was talking to Charles today, we don't know if we'll still hold this meeting because he won't be able to make it, but our plan currently is to hold a meeting, and I haven't talked to you yet, John, haven't had a chance, next Thursday the 16th, and that's scheduled for 11 o'clock with our school committee, which is Mayor Fantasy and Councilmember Marquez, and I believe it is Ed Williams and Bill Tizard from the school, and also inviting a couple of members from the 50 Plus Club who went with us about a year ago when we looked at a couple of senior centers. We will review the designs that he has, and then our plan is to then take that drawing with whatever changes might be looked at that time and do a presentation before the 50 Plus Club so that the entire group has a chance to look at it and provide any comments if necessary. And then with that, we'll bring it back to you as a council and to the school board for approval, and then they'll move forward with the construction documents and going out to bid and et cetera to get that done.
When does the 50 Plus Club meet?
They meet on the 1st and 3rd Fridays of the month. Is that right, David? That's what.
Yeah, but there'll be no meeting on the third
You know what time those meetings?
Friday this month.
Because it's
They're
Good
lunchtime,
Friday.
aren't
They meet
Meeting is actually the first Friday.
of May. Yeah.
What time are the
Those are
meetings?
lunchtime meetings,
Uh,
Dave, is that what they are?
It's normally 1:30, but the next meeting is a potluck, so it's at 12:30.
Okay.
Gonna join, Charles?
Well, I might be able to work something out.
Last item I have, if there's no other comments on the senior center, it looks good. I think our architect is doing a good job. One thing I'll mention quickly, that we're trying to arrange the language of what we use to, as far as the name of the school on the school side, because it's possible we may be able to pick up some money from the state to assist us with our preliminary estimates. Came in a little bit higher than what the money we have in the bond to spend for it. Plus, if we spend all of that money just for construction, we don't have any money for furnishings also, so we need to look at that. So we're looking at the possibility of being able to pick up possibly considerable amount of money from the state under this process, through this process also for a school. Judy just reminded me the tables that you had us buy for the memorial building came in. We don't have the chairs yet. They're coming under a separate order, but the tables are in, and we'll make sure those are inventoried and ready to use. Last item I want to mention is on the industrial park. There were some delays still, but the plans were sent to Merced County yesterday. I received my copy that was sent from our engineer's office today, and so I'm assuming that Merced County got theirs today. I did not get a chance to call them, but I plan on calling my contact over there, Steve Hamilton, tomorrow, and see that the process hopefully gets done and finished up this time. And that's all I have.
Item 13, items from city council members. Bob?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Charles?
That was actually one of my questions regarding the Merced County on the improvement plans. So hopefully,
They have them, and I will, I'll keep you updated through email regularly on that, because I know it's a hot topic, so I'll do that through email as I found out any information from Merced County.
okay. And also the second thing that I had regarding the truck parking issue, have we looked into the lighting out there?
Ernie is working on that. He's had a little bit of problem. They've referred him to the person that is in charge of that, and he has a hard time getting that person to return his phone calls. But we are proceeding, basically going over that person's head to get somebody else.
Not the
So.
same person that's in charge of the polls we're trying to get.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't believe
It
so.
is,
but-
Tim, it is.
Oh, it is?
Is it?
It is.
Okay. So, oh, that's right, it is.
Well, let's not let's not overwhelm.
Well, if we can't, if this continues to be a drawn-out process, can the council send him a letter?
Well,
Maybe the corporate to PG&E corporate.
yeah, I think we need to go to a supervisor above them possibly and see what needs to be done,
Right.
so.
Because I mean, we brought that issue back with the intent of,
Right.
of resolving it, and you know how that goes. Once it's dragging on a little bit,
Yeah.
then it stops.
I say, I've had Ernie contacting him. I'm gonna try and contact him myself, and maybe John can, I think John
I
made a call to him.
talked to him
also.
today. I will comment when it's my turn on that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Tim?
Thank you.
Nothing.
Nothing.
There you go.
Okay, I'll take Tim's time then. I had a couple items. Going back to last week, we met with the County CEO Reagan Wilson, Richard Jantz, Supervisor Paul Caruso about joint economic development, doing something with the county and the city. Cleve was there, Mike was there, two representatives from the Economic Development Committee, Susan Mattis, Jim Severa. It was a pretty good meeting, I guess. They want to get the ball rolling on maybe some regional development, some sort of a revenue sharing, economic development bank, maybe. Discussion, that was the first meeting, doing something, here on the west side like they did with Patterson. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. I stopped at the teen center today. The Acme Electric is finished with their work, and it looks really nice. Drop down ceiling with the nice lights and switches and plugs, and so they're just cleaning things up now. And the I believe I think it's the Girl Scouts still have some stuff there, and the
Boy Scouts too.
Boy Scouts too,
Yeah.
and the preschool still has some stuff I've seen in the back.
Yeah, the
They're waiting.
preschool had requested, as you know, they're trying to build a storage building.
Right.
You remember that came to you. And they had requested they'd be allowed to store a little bit of stuff until they get that built. And so we'll work with them on that.
Once that stuff's out of there should be plenty of room then. And Ernie gave me a phone number today for a gentleman from PG&E, and I actually talked to him today quite extensively. He's actually coming through town either tomorrow or Thursday, so we're going to meet. But the news is he's going to hand the project to somebody else. That's what his orders are. But that person is supposed to be with him. He's going to show him all the projects that are going on, because this gentleman's got dumped, like from Bakersfield to Sacramento, all the projects. So he's getting some help finally to assist him on these projects. So he's going to be showing that gentleman around. And so I asked him, on your opinion, what's the worst case scenario, on getting this done? He said a month. That's what he said, so.
That's the worst case?
That's the worst case, that's what he said. I said, what's your judgment on the way things are going? And he said, within a month it should be done. Oh, I'm sorry. Bob, you came in late there. Our tile drain, getting part of our tile drain, our pump over there on Canal Square Road, moving some poles and stuff. We had talked about PG&E weren't returning phone calls, and I actually talked to the gentleman today and he did apologize to Ernie for not returning your calls, but sounds like he's swamped big time. But he said that Ernie and Newman's probably mad at me, but so hopefully, we'll talk to him the next couple of days and get this ironed out and get things going. But it sounds like PG&E, they're all their problems, and people are retired and they weren't replaced, and so now they're getting some help, hopefully. So hopefully that'll work out. That's all I had.
And the street lights you mentioned?
He mentioned the street lights yesterday. He's
Within the money?
he didn't ask about that. I mean, he didn't tell me I didn't ask him a ton of money on the street lights, but when we get him over here, we'll show him everything. But
Well, we're going to put the priority definitely on the tile.
the priority is getting those poles moved and the power to the pump. Sounded like it'd be a different crew that did the street lights
Versus that.
So he understands that that's the top priority is the pump, and not the lights aren't, but that's a different crew to do that. That's just a maintenance crew, where the other one's a construction crew. So
Right.
Well, the lights are accommodating, which is something we discussed, but the poles
Poles
are crucial.
very important.
Right. actually the lights, and I didn't get a chance to go out there again as far as the lighting. I mean, if it's just a matter of putting them up, that's not really a gigantic undertaking either.
I think some of them, I talked to Ernie, some are just need some bigger bulbs maybe in them, Ernie. Is that what you suggested?
Some of those are in a real short arm. The arm only extends out to about 3-4 feet at the most. So to improve the lighting on some of the intersections, you may want to go to a 10-foot or a 12-foot arm.
Right.
Put on a 150 or 200 watt high
What do they
pressure
have out there,
sodium.
hundreds now?
They look small. They appear to be hundreds to me, all of them.
So if we extend those arms and put a bigger wattage, we'll
Yeah,
get better
there's
lighting.
about 4 of those that I saw. So.
Okay.
What about the lights downtown?
The
That are out, there are 2 on Pleasant Street that are out.
Those have been reported to our electrical contractor, and he's supposed to be working on those, getting some bulb replacements for those.
Mine's been out for 4 months.
we're saving
No.
money. Thank you, Ernie. That's all I have. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey, I didn't say aye yet.
Huh?
Said aye, yes, you know he agreed.